you could identify them. Okay, well, welcome. Here you got the recording started. Yeah, I'm gonna sit down in a minute so that I can kind of run the computer at the same time, go through the presentation. So I'm Dave Benoit with the Maine Department of Transportation. I work at headquarters. With me today, I have Bill Gary. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Yep.
I know some of you, most of you probably know my name as the director of the Maine State Ferry Service. I have been for the past 2.5 years, and then I've recently been promoted to director of multimodal operations up at headquarters. So I still have oversight of the Maine State Ferry Service and some other assets and glad to be here today.
And with us online is our consultant from Gilbert Associates. We have Jerry Gilligan. I don't know if you want to say hi, Jerry.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here.
And everyone online, thanks for joining. Yeah, let's get into this. So, the main point here for this meeting, we want to show and explain, what we've done to date, where we've gone, and then we also want to hear from you. We have the Quicksilver to get to, so we do have a hard stop about 7:20, 7:25. So I do want to leave room, for you guys to, for comment. I also could state is, for somehow, if you don't get everything that you wanted to say today, you can email me comments. We also have a virtual public process now that's going, and you can go to our Maine DOT website and find this project, enter in a comment, and that will go to me, and then I'll, work with Bill and Jerry to try to formulate, the best response we can to any suggestions, comments, whatever it is. All right. So background, we put this project out to bid in January of 2025. We got bids back. The low bid was 41.5 million. We had two bidders. The second bidder was, a couple million more than that. But overall, the project was 7 million over budget. That design was a boat that's 207 feet long. It's double-ended, had all electric operations with 2 large battery rooms, a rapid shore side charger, with an automatic, charging arm or crane that went with it. That would have been, positioned on a dolphin. The vessel length is 40 feet longer. That design was 40 feet longer than the existing Margaret J. Smith ferry. And, this new, because it's longer, required, a whole bunch of dolphins that needed to be constructed at both Lincolnville and here in Islesboro, with a substantial pen improvement to go along with the longer boat. So to save costs, we had to look at some alternatives and kind of revisit everything that we've done to date. So we did a reassessment, and all electric operations were a very expensive part of the vessel. And we determined there'd be substantial savings if we went to a hybrid assist propulsion, which is the same as the Dinsmore ferry that we are close to having, completed down in Rhode Island. That's being built at Snesco Marine, and it's currently, having contractor trials, soon to be followed by sea trials. The double-ended design with the exposed rudder and propeller eliminated the ability for the boat to be maintained and serviced by Rockland Marine. I'll get into that in the next slide. We determined that the double-ender should be abandoned for a conventional ferry. We shortened the vessel to 172 feet, which is just, slightly longer than the existing Margaret J. Smith that you guys are familiar with. And that allows us to not have to do all this, pen improvements. And we're saving well over 20 million by doing these changes that are being suggested. The shorter hybrid assist vessel eliminates, again, the four berthing dolphins, the rapid charging dolphin. Each dolphin, by the way, is like $3 million a pop. And the wave fencing that goes, in between dolphins. There was an e-house that was going to be proposed that provide power for the rapid charging arm, for several $1 million, and that thing is not required for a hybrid assist ferry. So again, we were looking to save, a lot of different areas, and then we'll show what we've come up with. We've maintained this 40-foot beam width, and with that, the existing Smith has a 40-foot beam, so we know that that fits well into both pens. We also know that Rockland Marine can service a ferry with a 40-foot beam.
Nick, can I just add something? So I think it's important to know that.
Use this mic. Okay.
Sure.
Had to turn mine off.
Turn mine. There, yep. So I think it's important to note, so I worked closely with John King, who was on the advisory board for Maine State Ferry Service. And on day 2, he asked me about the design of this original concept that we had, and I was not involved in any of that. And I don't think that we did a great job coming to the public, talking about the design. And so the fact that we rejected these bids, we wanted to go back and look at other design concepts other than what we had originally put out to bid. And so that is kind of what some of this presentation is that we've taken some of we know that you had a survey that was done out on the island and what you looked for and what was recommended. We looked at that, and part of the presentation today is going to be showing 3 different concepts, more open design concepts than tunnel concepts of what we looked at, and we'll be talking about those pros and cons. But I think it's important for us to acknowledge that in the beginning phases, we probably weren't involved enough with the public. And now that this is why we're here tonight, to talk about the different design phases that are out there and the concepts that are out there, and to hear from you on what you think about those design concepts as well.
It's a double ender that not working. Check. All right. So double ender ferry challenges. So Rockland Marine recently made a determination that their rail system can't dry dock a double-ended ferry given the water depth, the draft of the ferry, and its overall size for the one that was 207 that we had put out to bid. We asked them, so okay, well, if you can't do it now, what would it cost, to upgrade your facility? And they came back with, well, we'd have to put in a travel lift. We'd have to move some stuff around that they don't want to do. And by the way, it would cost us about $12 million. They weren't interested in doing that type of upgrade. The additional, double ender has poor hydrodynamics. Just the shape of the hull, as it travels, in this direction, that forward propeller needs to run in reverse. And then when you go the other direction, you're being primarily pushed from the stern. And then, that forward propeller always has to run backwards to kind of make up for the drag. Overall, a double-ended ferry is, significantly less efficient than a conventional ferry that has a normal bow. The double ender is also slower and would consume more fuel, per trip. So a faster conventional ferry in transit can negate the 2 minutes that we've determined that it takes to spin the ferry each time. So we've determined that the conventional ferry, where the design speed for, this new boat, could be at 14 knots, whereas a double ender was, more like 12. All right, so we looked at some design concepts here. So there were 4 that we looked at: a conventional balance design, which is similar to the Margaret Chase Smith, but with improved horizontal and vertical clearances so that people can get out of their vehicles. We know the tunnels are very tight. I've experienced it. We've been out there, we watched them loaded, see pictures. We know they're no good and everybody hates them. So if we're gonna have tunnels, we'll make them so they're usable. We've looked at a single tunnel concept with an elevator and with restrooms. That's would be in full ADA compliance. We also did a radical thing here. We said, if you had a single tunnel, how can you max out the seating? Is there a way to make a single tunnel work and make that cabin as big as possible? And we said, well, what if we got rid of the elevator? What if we got rid of the bathrooms? You know, it's a short trip. And if you don't have a regular cabin restaurant for, normal able people, then you wouldn't have to require an ADA bathroom that's quite a bit bigger. So this was a design we probably couldn't do, but we're like, let's do it anyways. Let's give it a shot to see what it would look like and figure out what is the max seating capacity for a single tunnel design, because we knew that the public, there's substantial interest in this. And we really went out and tried to make that work. In fact, tried to make each one of these designs, work to its fullest capability. And the last design is the aircraft carrier design with a small cabin on the freight deck that's off to one side. I will note that the hull arrangements all below deck would be similar for, each of these four alternatives that we looked at. We have an FDA grant that's funding this project for $28 million. One of the stipulations of that grant, though, is that it's a hybrid ferry. We didn't get into the nuances, there's a lot of different types of hybrids. We've worked with FDA and they provide us some flexibility, to look at, all the different hybrid options that are out there, and they're willing to accept, a hybrid assist ferry, based on our conversations and our actions with them. We're looking at a parallel hybrid assist system, functions in all diesel mode, electric boost mode, and EV mode. Would be substantially quieter at port because you can shut off the main engines and just allow those electric motors to push that ferry against the dock. All right, here's the three different sections. So, carrier. We had the laser pointer. Oh, I think I need to go to that one.
And the top option.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, so this is the two-tunnel design, very similar to the Margaret Chase Smith. However, we have substantially wider tunnels than what you have now. And center truck lane, and then two passenger cabins, one on each side, on top of the vehicle tunnels, and a very large pilot house centered on the top. And this is a design that we heard there's a lot of interest in. We say, look, North Carolina can do this. Why can't Maine? I'll show that in a minute. Vermont to New York, crossing Lake Champlain has this, single tunnel option. So we asked Gilbert to go ahead and do it, and Jerry drew it up and designed it to the best of his abilities. You have a single tunnel, you have a cabin on top, and then the pilot house. The truck lane is a little bit off center. Then you have this nice wide open, lane on the outside that looks really desirable, so you can get off and on. And you don't have a tunnel over there. We understand, the appeal for it. And we also looked at the last one here is the aircraft carrier with a cabin on the freight deck and then 3 lanes. This middle one we said we looked at, with the elevator and also without the elevator. All right, so single tunnel challenges. This is the Vermont, New York ferry, North Carolina ferries look similar to it. It doesn't provide enough seating for the morning walk-ons. We need at least 110, capacity for 110 for that morning walk-on. And we looked at, even if you remove the elevator and restrooms and you strip it down and you just pack in as many seats as you possibly can, you're still short. The ferry's going to list, and the way it would work is, it's going to list a little bit one way when it's unloaded, and then you load it, and then it comes back. It's how it works. There's no way that this thing is not going to have a list. It's clearly going to list a little bit to start, and then again you list back, and you hope you can load it, really well. There's challenges with the list. Dry docking becomes a challenge. There's ways to mitigate that. It doesn't mean it's impossible. There's boats obviously in service here that have this design, but it does make dry docking more of a challenge. You have to add a bunch of weight, to compensate and try to get it level. There's steps that you can take. It just adds complexity to it. The center truck lane is off-centered primarily because of the ADA cabin on the freight deck. And you're trying to, make a usable cabin that's big enough. So making that cabin wider, you shift the truck lane a little bit to compensate. This 2 less car capacity, that depends on, how many trucks you put on there. If it's fully loaded, all the way, from one end to the other, you could lose, some vehicular capacity. However, we have a slide. Jerry's tried to, problem solve that too. And if we're talking, 2 dump trucks and a box truck, we think we can get the capacity for vehicles to match. We've really looked at each one of these options, eyes wide open. What is the very best single tunnel option that we can come up with? And we're going to show that here in a minute. However, picture here, this Vermont Ferry is a 44-foot beam, and that's too wide for a pen. That's too wide for Rockland Marine. We can't get a 4-lane ferry, to work here for this run between Lincolnville and Islesboro. The aircraft carrier design, okay, there's some appeal to that too, because like you got, every lane there wide open. You don't have any, overhead things in the way. There's some appeal for it. We understand that. But it comes with challenges. So one of them is dry docking. Again, you have, it's going to list. It's going to, it's going to start, listing one way, and as you load it, it'll come back. It's like a single tunnel. The cabin space is certainly substandard, not adequate for walk-ons. There's not really good location for the rescue boat. And the picture here, this Fisher Island ferry, this has a 52-foot wide beam. It has 4 lanes shown in that picture, but our ferry is limited to a 40-foot beam. This big bathtub design, it's not going to move well through the water. This ferry has a very short little 6-minute run, moving back and forth where we have to go, 3 miles. So the hydrodynamics for our run, you want to have a boat that can, moves, well through the water, and that can travel at a pretty good clip. All right, so recommendations. So we know that the audience, people that live on, the users of the ferry, they have comments and suggestions and ideas. We also have our captains, the people that work on the boat, our engineers, Bill. There's a whole group of people that also have a lot of opinions too. And I am not a naval architect. I don't work for the ferry service. I'm in headquarters. And part of my challenge has been really to try to build some consensus with everybody with the ferry service to start with. And I think we're there. We still hear, there's still people that, throwing suggestions at us and other things that we're going to look at. We're continuing to listen to everybody. But we do think we have a recommendation. And we're recommending the 2-tunnel ballast design. This isn't 100% done deal. We're still here today, soliciting feedback. If there's a better way to do something and we can afford it, well, by all means, let's do it. But based on our budget, based on all the parameters, servicing the vessel, what the pens are, this is what we've come with all the information that we've collected. We've come up, with this recommendation. So it is the 2-tunnel ballast design. It has adequate seating. It can accommodate all the walk-ons in the morning. It has a bathroom. You're a walk-on, you have a cup of coffee. It's going to be nice to be able to use the bathroom if you need to. It's going to be the widest, with the greatest horizontal clearance and the highest vertical clearance of any ferry in the fleet. It's a conventional design. It can be maintained right next door at Rockland Marine. Doesn't need to be towed out of state. Minimal to zero listing issues because it's a balanced design. The structure is similar on each side, and the truck lane is centered. It has full ADA compliance. It's an ADA elevator, and an ADA restroom in one of the cabins. There's ample deck space for the rescue boat. There's plenty of room for gear. I didn't notice that I hadn't been here on the winter, but I know you have a snow blower that's on deck. You want places for carts. You know, a lot of people now are taking carts back and forth. There's just, you know, there's a real need for space to have gear. This two tunnel design has it. There's adequate ventilation for the uptakes, and there's outdoor seating in the summertime. People want to enjoy the view. It's going to be a nice ride with seating on top. The aircraft carrier, the single tunnel, doesn't provide that. All right, so it has the best freight carrying capacity with the truck lane fully loaded. It's centered. This is the Margaret Chase Smith that you're looking at. We're going to improve the vertical clearance by adding another 8 inches. The clearance here, I believe, is 8'6", and the new ferry, we're looking at 9'1", 9'2". And what that vertical clearance gives you is you can take an expedition, put 2 kayaks on top, and you can fit it under the tunnel. You can take an F-150 or a Silverado or a Ram, full-size pickup truck. You can put a ladder on top, and you can get it under the tunnel. Those vehicles will no longer have to be in the truck lane. That's quite an advantage. We kind of did a survey of all the different types of vehicles that are coming and going, and we can get, you know, majority of them under the tunnels. The one exception is there's a Sprinter van that's very, very tall, and if you put a ladder on top of that, it won't fit. But the vast majority of vehicles now will be able to fit under the tunnels. We improved the horizontal clearances substantially. We've gone and pulled out all the stops to put the widest tunnels that we could fit with a 40-foot beam. And, you know, Jerry here has been very crafty about how we went about doing it. And we've made it so you can open the doors for a full-size pickup or a very large SUV while you're in the tunnels, and you can get out and go into the cabin, use the restroom. If there's ever some type of crazy emergency, you can get out of a full-size vehicle if you're in the tunnels. So this new design, how do we do it? So let's explain that. So these trunks here are going to be narrower on the latest design. And they're better than the one that we put out to bid. We've gone to subchapter K boat, and that allows us to have the narrowest stairwells that we can get, about 36 inches. And we've narrowed these up, and we're gaining 7 inches per trunk. The out-to-out dimension of the ferry actually is 6 inches wider. So the current ferry is 39 feet. The new one's going to be 39 feet, 6 inches. And then you have a rump rail with a few inches on either side. And that existing Smith ferry has like a 6-inch rail on each side. And we've made that smaller to be able to, you know, push the superstructure out wider. What that does allows us to have, you know, greater tunnel space. We got rid of all those silly railings. They get in the way when you want to open your door. We know that. You're not going to have any of those railings. The railings down, you know, the wheel guards, those are going away. We're not going to have these substandard, you know, tunnels that, these wheel guards that people have to walk on, you know, to get from one end to the other for the crew, you know, if they're operating. Those things are going away. And then the truck lane, we played with that too. So this truck lane, they have these rails on the, you know, down the side. And if you count the distance, you know, from rail to rail, we're actually making it wider with a new, you know, this new, I'm going to call it the Margaret Chase Smith 2.0. I heard it from John King. He coined it. It's better. It's not the Margaret Chase Smith 1.0. It's 2.0. The truck lane is wider. It's 2 inches wider. And the tunnels are 22 inches wider, close to 2 feet wider. All right,
Which tunnels are 22 inches?
All right, each one of these, 22 inches wide, close to 2 feet wider on either side. That's a lot of room. I'm going to get into that in a minute. It's a balanced conventional design. What we're really doing is taking the sphere design, includes an elevator. It's a modern boat that we just, you know, put into service not too long ago. But we're going to upsize it This one has a 38-foot beam. We're gonna take this ferry and add 2 feet to the width. We're gonna, make it longer, and we're gonna make it a little bit taller so that you can max out that vertical clearance, and you get that expedition with a kayak on top of that F-150 with a ladder rack. All right, so here are the 4 options. The Stallions two tunnel option, almost no listing issues. All the others are gonna list. In terms of cabin seating, clearly the 2 tunnel design has the greatest cabin capacity. The single tunnel, the seating capacity is 59. If we get rid of the elevator, in the restrooms, it's pretty radical. And you not only do that, but if you actually try to squish in as many possible seats as you can, that has a very, very tight, seating density. Jared was able to get 94 seats on there. The aircraft carrier, you get, 83. So clearly the 2 tunnel has the greatest, capacity. Other amenities. So the 2 tunnel design, 62 outdoor seats, probably way more than you need. None of the others have outdoor seating. You got 2 restrooms, one on either side. One side where the elevator gets an ADA restroom. You got a bunch of tables as well. And it's also substantially more space for gear, carts, bikes, and now, the snowblower that I saw on the way over here. Single tunnel, we get 1 restroom, no outdoor seats, no tables. And then the super tight, compact one, no tables, no restrooms, no outdoor seating. Aircraft carrier, there is, you can have a restaurant, no tables, no outdoor seating. And it's a challenge to get the rescue boat on there. Of course, you're going to be able to put a rescue boat somewhere, but it's probably going to come at the expense of potentially a vehicle spot. The freight capacity, they're very similar. At least these first 3. You get 18 vehicles in 3 large trucks. The aircraft carrier, however, substantial freight, reduction of the number of vehicles. I think John has ones up here, just the one that we looked at before, that ferry that, John may discuss and posted up, but that's a, 200-foot plus boat where we're looking at, 172. But let's get into it. So hull arrangements below deck, it's a K boat. This will be similar for each. It doesn't really matter, what we do up above, and we're looking at a hybrid assist propulsion system. The 2 tunnel design, so you get cabins on either side, has an elevator, the rescue boat's up top, loads of seating up top, truck lane near center, vehicles on the outside. Single tunnel. So the one thing I really want to notice that, it's tiny little pilot house up top. This has the ADA restroom in the elevator, and inadequate seating. And just note, so when you put this ADA restroom in there, in the elevator, and you also, try to have adequate tunnel space, you end up shifting that truck lane. In this picture here is, if you fully load this thing with trucks, if you had, 3 really long box trucks, you could potentially lose this vehicle and that vehicle. But recently I got another slide that Jerry's figured out a way that you can try to get those back. But if it's fully loaded, you would have less space than the balanced design because that truck lane is off center. The aircraft carrier and the cabins off to one side. The O1 deck, this cabin space, tiny little pilot house up top. The spot's a little awkward, getting in and out. Same thing here, you got to kind of pull in and back in. All right, so this is the latest. This is the 2 tunnel. You can see, the truck lane loaded with trucks, and then we get 9 on either side. If there are any trucks, you can double up a couple, in the bow and stern.
Just for a reference, I believe it's 16 feet 3 inches, a Toyota Camry is what we're saying typical car is. So you have that. Back in the old design, right, we said 30 is what the Margaret Chase Smith can carry. That depends on the size of the vehicles and all that, but we have to use some type of measurement. So as we're going through this, like a Toyota Camry is what we're saying is the average car that would be fitting in.
So I mean, take one away, right? So I mean, I looked at all the cars going on here. Everyone's got SUVs, whatever, that's what I'm seeing. You know, a lot of pickup trucks, a lot of full-size pickup trucks too, so. But they're all gonna fit under the tunnels. They're gonna be able to open the doors. All right. So single tunnel, it's really quite similar. Jerry was able to, you know, if you push them all to the stern, you can get, you know, the car on the bow, and you can get an equivalent capacity, which is great. This doesn't have an elevator, and I just want to point out this no elevator one. We do need a place for somebody in a wheelchair to be able to, you know, if you're a walk-on, you'd have a place for someone in a wheelchair on the freight deck, and they would be in this location. That causes you to shift the truck lane to one side, to be able to create this, you know, ADA station. I'll do, well, go ahead, fire away.
Question, but I know on the Margaret Chase Smith, when we load cars, there's certain places we can't put them because they're escape hatches for the people down below. I don't see any of them on here. Does that mean that they're in a different place?
Well, there'll be hatches, right? You're gonna be able to get into the spaces, you know, at the bow and stern and throughout. And since we've done both the Spear and Dinsmore ferries, we've played around with the best location for those hatches. And we'll strategize to try to find the best spots that don't, you know, impact the loading, and you can maximize the freight carrying capacity. So for sure, we haven't detailed this out yet. But it's, you know, following this meeting, if we can get some buy-in, we'd like to be able to, you know, move forward and go to the next step, and that would include locating those hatches. So this includes an elevator, you know, the truck lane is you know, pushed to one side, freight carrying capacity is similar. Here's the one to look at though. So the aircraft carrier is a bit of a dog here. You don't get to, you know, you're losing a whole lane of cars. When you put trucks on there, it's inefficient. You know, Jerry has said this to me before, you know, 40 foot for an aircraft carrier is an unfortunate width. It's not a good width to do an aircraft carrier design. And this slide really shows it. Not only does it have inadequate cabin space, but you're losing a whole bunch of vehicles with that truck lane loaded. And it's certainly, this would be, in our opinion, the least desirable option. All right, can I get out? We know this is a huge problem. Can I get out of can I open my door and get out? So the lane width out of the tunnels is increased from 100 inches to 122, 22 inches wider under each tunnel on both sides. A Ford F-150 or Silverado or Ram, I looked at these large SUVs, they're 80 inches wide if you don't count the mirrors. Of course, the mirrors don't get in the way when you open the doors. That's why, you know, we don't count the mirrors. Take 122, subtract the vehicle width. You have 42 inches of space to work with. If the vehicle's dead center of that lane, it gives you 21 inches on either side. I think, you know, the people loading these things, they can shift it a little bit one way or the other, and you can make, you know, on the driver's side, add another inch. We've done some, you know, I got on, you know, AI's thing, and I asked AI, what's the minimum width that you need to get out if you're building a garage or whatever? It says 18 inches. And we did some experiments with this. We had Dan Conrad, and I think it's okay. He's to say his weight. He told me, you know, he's pushing 240. He's a big dude. He can get out with 18 inches, but he likes 22. So I can get out with 22. That's a lot better for a big guy. But we wanted to test it real world, right? So a real guy trying to get out of the truck, 22 inches, no problem. I will note that I'll show, I'm even gonna go back. So on this. So you have an elevator, and at the elevator, it gets a little bit narrower, okay? There's also uptakes here where this tunnel width is not the 122. The 122 I'm talking about is the majority of the tunnels. But there's two spots, one on each side, where there is a restriction, okay? The kicker here is you just need to load a normal sized vehicle there and you're gonna be fine, okay? And let's go back. All right, so what are you gonna put there? You have the elevator, you have the uptake on either side where there's a restriction. So again, I got online and I've got all these vehicle widths. These are the common SUVs that people have. You look at basically at, little, 73 inches. The elevator's 105. That's the tightest spot of the tunnel. Your existing Smith is only 100. At the elevator, you're 5 inches wider at the tightest spot. Okay? So you're already going to be wider than what you have to deal with at the tightest location. And you park, a RAV4 or Forester and these other vehicles, you're going to have no problem getting in and out. At the uptake, it's 114 inches on the other side, and you got plenty of room to be able to open your doors. We wanted to proof it and look, we've done our homework here. Right now, because of these rails and the superstructure, you got 100 inches and you got these wheel guards that we're not gonna have, those are going away. That it's tight on each side. And again, we're going up to 122. The truck lane, this rail to rail width is 11 feet, 1 inch. I have that in bold here. So between the rails, the truck lane, what it's limited to, 11 feet, 1 inch. Our new proposed design is 2 inches wider. We're making the truck lane better. And these rail guards, they're gonna go away as well. All right, so here you go, classic picture, large vehicle trying to get in the tunnel. That shows you the headache that you guys are living and why you guys think, you hate this tunnel design. We get it. And the picture paints the picture. We understand you got 100 inches. It's even less at one spot here where it's really tight. We're not gonna have that problem in our Ferry that we're recommending. So here's the example. We took this is a F-150 super duty, super cab, whatever it is. It's the same size as an F-250, by the way. And this is a 22-inch door open that, our large guy can get in and out of. And again, I said 22 inches. I think you can offload that a little bit. You're not going to park those vehicles dead center. All right, so the advantages of this thing. So it's 6 feet longer than the existing Smith. The superstructure overall is wider, 6 inches wider. We've narrowed up those stairwell trunks by 7 inches. The wheel guards are going away. The truck lane is 2 inches wider. The tunnels, I keep harping on this, 22 inches wider. Vertical clearance is improving from 8'6" to 9. It's 9'1" or 9'3". You have these sprinkler heads, and that's really what drives it. It may be 9'1", we'll see, but you're going to still be able to get that F-150 with a ladder on the back, on top. Full ADA compliance and elevator restrooms. We're looking at a hybrid propulsion system. It's going to be quieter at port. You shut off the main engines. 20. I use the lower end. Jerry says, we may get up to 25%. I want to be cautious and, it's better to under promise and over deliver. So you're looking at 25% fuel savings. You're going to be able to triple charge these batteries at night. You have these variable speed generators. So the generators only need to fire at, at how much that you need. So if you don't need the power, they throttle down. Bridge wings, ability to control, the ferries if you have to launch the rescue boat. You have a very nice large pilot house. Our crew works on this boat. They're in there, all day, long day. Look, you know, they deserve to have a pilot house that has all things that they need. There's space for gear, carts, bikes, under the stair towers. And let's just go over that really quick, because this is a really important detail. This two balanced design. So going down into the hold, let me go back. Okay, so you have stairs on one side here, and there's a second set of stairs as well. So the stairs are onto one side going down into the hold. On the other side, there's no stairs going down. So here, under the stairs, is going to be all the space for carts, bikes, the snow blower. There's going to be places for that stuff to go. You know, the existing, you know, there's a couple of spots and an awkward spot for the snow blower. I saw, you know, places for shovels. I was kind of, you know, looking around here on my trip over. It's going to be way, way better than what you got now. And it's a huge advantage of this two-tunnel design is because, you know, on this side here, there's some space, not as much, but there's space under these stairs for gear. We've tried to listen to you guys. We've heard this. And John was very clear. Look, I need space for gears. People are using the carts. Well, look, we found spaces for it, and we solved that problem.
While you're talking about the stairs, are they still gonna be as steep as the current ones?
Jerry, go ahead.
No, they're the ADA, you know, 11-inch long, 7-inch rise step. So they're much shallower than the Smiths.
Is it more in line with the sphere?
Yeah, it's the same design.
It's exactly like the Spears. Yeah.
You know, the difference is we're adding an additional stair because we're trying to raise up that O1 deck so that we're not leaving behind, you know, those F-150s with a ladder on the back. Yeah. So here we go. Here's your opportunity. You guys can fire away questions. I think it would be helpful if people just state their name.
Oh, and pass around the microphone.
Yeah, we'll pass the mics
I'm
and,
gonna stop the screen share so I can see people on the.
yeah, good. All right. Jack.
Melissa Burns, select board. Is it safe to assume that with the other two options that would that you were saying would have list, whatever,
Less, yeah.
tipping, would that potentially impact bad weather runs and would limit depending on the direction of the wind and stuff like that, we are subject to ferry cancellations due to which direction it goes. So I could see how that's gonna cause a problem. Will you want to speak to that?
I'm not most qualified, but,
I'll answer if you want.
Jerry, go ahead.
So I would say, you know, it's going to be an annoying thing all the time, you know, the list. So it's going to be a degree, you know, one way or the other. And maybe you don't think a degree is quite a bit you can feel, you know, when you're standing on the boat. So bad weather, yeah, if it was blowing if the wind was blowing further over, sure, yeah, it would be worse. I'm not sure it would affect, you know, cancellations though, really. But I think it'll be an annoying thing all the time, the list. And there's really no way around it. You know, you have to have the list be split between light and heavy conditions, or it would just be really bad one way or really bad the other way.
I just know for that list, you know, you could water balance, but that's gonna take time. And we want to stay on schedule, right? We looked at the double ender to prevent the spin, some of those other pieces. So there are ways to counter the heel or the list or whatever, but it's going to take time to do that and they're at dock. So you're gonna have to deal with that schedule if we
Order of magnitude is we're talking like 45 tons of off-center weight that would have to be compensated for. That's a lot. That would be a lot of water to move in a certain, you know, short amount of time. Also would take up a lot of space down below that you really don't have.
Now it's on. Hi, Scott DeGrasse, 508 Ferry Road. I'm on the planning commission, for the island. You mentioned up front that this new ferry comes in about 20 million under the original budget. I want to continue if I can.
Sure. Yeah, the budget. That savings includes the pen improvements too.
Right.
Okay, so we need to save 7 million. We have a $28 million grant and we have state funds that provide a match for that. Plus we have to pay for the design and we also need to pay for construction inspection, while that ferry is being built. And that's often, somebody inexpensive in a hotel, spending the night there. Pay for Gilbert during construction. And we also pay, we're looking at 1 to 2 million of overruns typically on any of these ferry projects, especially one that includes, modern, things like hybrid assist propulsion.
It would be great to have a rundown on those numbers for the town, just even if they're estimates. If I can further on the question, if you're looking at a $7 million savings to get to where the original budget was, I would like to ask, I know that there is expense of building additional dolphins, increasing the size of the pen, but one of the bigger things was capacity of the ferry itself. I know you've increased it 6 feet, but is there a reason why we couldn't increase by another car length or 2 car lengths and stay within the necessary savings on budget?
This one's. Yeah, so we thought we could add 6 feet and not have to do anything to the pens. So again, the dolphins are incredibly expensive, plus the wave fencing in between. And if you add 1 dolphin, so if you, let's say, add 1 car length, so that's 4 dolphins. 4 times 3, we're looking at $12 million in dolphins together, right? And that, plus you can add wave fence in between. I don't have that number on the top of my head, but you're probably looking at several million for wave fence on either side, depending on the type of wave fence that you build. So 15 million, big round numbers in that neighborhood is what you're looking at to be able to have a slightly longer ferry. Plus you got to pay for the ferry being longer. So this is real money. It's a substantial dollars, for the project.
Totally understood, and I appreciate the answer. I appreciate you guys being here. The reason, I think really the only reason I asked the question was because of the need to increase capacity. And it's not just about walk-ons, which I appreciate the fact that you guys provided the 3 column option similar to what we have today, because of the fact that we have probably close to 100 to 120 walk-ons every day during the week on morning runs. But if there is the possibility of increasing the size, I think it would be worth looking at, in my opinion. And then the only other comment I would have is on the ADA and the elevator. Was there any consideration for locating the elevator toward the aft end of the vessel so that it's easier for people that do have handicap access, rather than having it, I think, 3/4 of the way down the ship on the left-hand side tunnel? And to me, it seems like it would be a lot easier to locate it toward the aft end of the vessel where it's located.
Jerry?
Well, probably on the arrangement that we have now, it probably needs to be where it is because of the tonnage rules, K-boat, and not putting it over the, trying to get it away from the machinery space. It's a little difficult to put the elevator over the engine room because, you've got the exhaust pipes for the engines overhead and clearance issues over the engines themselves. So it's probably the best. I think it's probably ideally located for the structure of the boat, where we have everything. Also the elevator trunk up on the top deck incorporates into the aft end of the pilot house structure. So it fits there best probably. Also about the length, I think we're at the max length that the K-boat idea would work at. Longer boat would be higher tonnage and would probably turn into an H boat.
So that impacts width of the stairs, right? And that can impact the crewing as well. A K boat versus an H boat could have different crewing requirements as well.
You lose, we try to play games too, like when we started out this, you know, we asked Gilbert, they petitioned the US Coast Guard, we're like, what if we had an H boat down below? Because we wanted to try to do all electric operations, and we started, but that was one of the wishes of the town, we heard you, right, so we listened. And we knew you guys wanted that, and wanted double ender, and we like, every time you guys want stuff, we have like worked really diligently. Jerry, I've asked him probably the same question at least 3-4 times, and I'm no different than you. And I sit there and I pick at Jerry, and we talk at least either once a week or every other week. And I'm always asking all these questions, same questions you guys have. Anyway, so we were like, what if you made it an H boat in the hole, so you have all the room that you want for all that, equipment down below, the battery rooms, fire suppression, switchboards, everything that goes into having an electric boat. It takes a tremendous amount of space for all the equipment down there. So we said, all right, H boat below deck, let's try to get a K boat above deck where we can get the narrower stair towers. And, Gilbert tried to work with the US Coast Guard, and we got enough. We tried that, but the H boat we don't want. You're gonna lose 9 inches per trunk. And that wonderful 22 inches, which you can now get out of, an F-150, you won't be able to do anymore. It's like, kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. So the K boat is what we really want. It's the answer here. It has the narrowest stair towers, widest tunnels, so that we can give you guys, we've got to hold this thing a lot faster, a lot safer, and people can get in and out of, the crew can work, walk up and down, on either side, have space to move around. We really want to stick with the K. It's a really important detail.
Thanks. I'm not going to stand up as we need to look at some notes. First, I should note that I sent May a letter with a lot of attachments because there's a lot of history here on the 15th, which was Monday. And I just like that to be acknowledged as being a part of this, whatever the file ends up being. And I'd also like to thank both Nate and Bill because you're obviously trying to squeeze every drop out of this wash rag that you can. And I'm not being disparaging when I say that, but thank you for your efforts here. I was the Asbro representative on the advisory board for a number of years, in fact, when this began. And as Nate acknowledges, back in 2021, in the fall, we did a Ferry survey of the Ferry users and the island residents. And the select board, following that survey, sent a letter to Mark Higgins, who was at the time running the Ferry services, with the copy of Bill Palmer, who was the COO of DOT. And I won't go into all the details of that, but the three takeaways that, the three important takeaways at the time were that people would like to see an open deck boat, a clean boat, all electric if possible, and a double-ended boat so it wouldn't have to turn around on both sides. The big deal there, my takeaway, the big deal there was the open deck because people really disliked the alleyways and they were considered narrow, hard to navigate, caused damage to either wheels or mirrors. Couldn't get out of the car. Some concern that in an emergency situation that would not be pretty. So it was legit. And then just by way of history, the first design that we ever saw is up on, or that I ever saw rather, is up on the wall there, which is I guess the so-called aircraft carrier design there. Am I right on that? Yeah, okay. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. The only thing that concerned me was that the seating was inadequate for walk-on passengers. It was substantially inadequate. It was about 60, give or take. And again, I'm not a naval architect either. So But I looked at this and I encourage everyone to take a peek at this too, because it had seating both on the vehicle deck and what is called the O1 deck, the next deck up above. And, the rescue boat was actually down on the vehicle deck. And I thought, well, no, I'm not a naval architect, but if you threw that up on the superstructure somewhere and you extended passenger cabins, maybe we could get to where we wanted to be, at least 100, if not a little bit more. And so my main concern with that design, the first design that I saw in April of 2023, was just the passenger capacity. And I actually met with Bill, I think the second day he started as executive director, and said, this is a nice design, except for that. And it was double-ended, it had electricity, it was electrical power, and we were going to use APD, which is well known in Europe as a legitimate supplier and stuff. And so that was fine. And then we made a point at the time of saying, keep us advised, so we, and that didn't really happen, unfortunately. So about 11 months later, Bill sent me something that said, well, we solved the passenger capacity, but it was the Margaret Chase Smith 2.0. And I was like, oh my God. So, but it wasn't really the Margaret Chase Smith 2.0. It had the center lane and the outer lanes. It was still going to be powered by electricity, and it was double-ended. And so the select board and I talked about that, and I was kind of disappointed at the time, but I said, well, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. I mean, but I was very disappointed because the reaction during the Ferry survey was get rid of the tunnels, and as a result, I'm no longer the representative of the Alpha representative, but I still stay involved, and I don't have hard feelings right now. I didn't want to be associated with that boat because it's going to be around for 30 years. And we had a nice, well, not a nice meeting, it wasn't a nice meeting, but we had a full meeting with Bill and another representative, Gilbert, Jerry, I don't believe. Jerry, you weren't on that, were you?
No, it was John.
No.
Yeah. It was John Gilbert and another designer, a woman.
Here, Bucks.
Yeah, and it didn't go well. But it went. And my takeaway was, this is what you're gonna get. And but I thank Nate and Bill for this, because what we were gonna get has been tweaked substantially, and I do appreciate that. I think with me, I kind of have a philosophical issue here, because double end, I think, would make sense, but I understand the limitations that we have with Rockland Creek, which I think is unfortunate. The big thing for me is the propulsion system. And because we were all electric, they've been doing it in Europe. We talked about this. There's a boat, semi-aircraft carrier design called the Ellen, runs a 22-mile run. It's all electric, and it's basically, depending upon how it's fueled, whether or not it's conventionally charged or use of wind power or solar power, saves between 2,000 and 2,500 tons of carbon dioxide a year, which is huge. And I think that's important. And the hybrid system, I'm happy that it works within the parameters of US DOT, because it means we get 20 million bucks. 28 million bucks, excuse me. No, it's a lot of money, and I appreciate that. But the fact of the matter is if I understand things correctly, it may be called full hybrid because it's charging some batteries, but the batteries only can be used to push up against the dock. And the savings is going to be against diesel is going to be between at best 30%, and more likely, more realistically, somewhere between 20 and 25%, which is nice, and it's better than a stick in the eye. But on the other hand, It's not a lot. And, again, we're gonna have this boat for 30 or we're heading like 40 years on the market space. This thing's gonna be around for a long, long time. And we've got the technology to do it. What we don't have is the money. So I do, and Nate and Bill, I appreciate you being here. You're not the ones that are gonna come up with telling that 10 million bucks, but we've got a senator who's the chair of the appropriations committee. It just strikes me as nuts that we can't come get the money to do it right. And the only other thing I'd say is, I'm not married to that. I'm not married to anything. But the single tunnel design is a very, very popular design. Well, not popular, but it's a well-used design. North Carolina, the second largest ferry system in the country, uses it and uses it very well. One of the things, the nice thing about that is you don't have two trunks, you only have one. And by doing that, you gain 4 or 5 people. And that's important too. So while I appreciate your efforts, I still think we're basically, and I told John Gelder this, he didn't like this, but I think we're trying to stuff modern technology with 40-year-old design. And I get the tweaks. I appreciate the tweaks. It's going to be nice to get out of the cars. It'd be nice not to hit the rails. But I just think we can do better. But you folks may not be the ones that have the go, no go on that. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
We have somebody on Zoom, a hand raised. Go ahead, Laura.
Hi, guys. Quick question. Design layout principally around the 2 tunnel, which is really 3 tunnels. For the ADA, is it possible to arrange it so that the ADA bathroom would be down on the engine room level? It looked like there was a lot of clear space that could possibly be used for that. And then the elevator wouldn't need to go to the upper deck. Alternatively, maybe just the bathroom could be put on the main deck and no elevator at all. The other thing is, on that design, it seemed like there were an awful lot of outdoor seats. Is there a reason that the interior space can't capture some of that space and have more indoor seats?
Yes, so as far as the handicap bathroom being on the main deck, it actually would be a foot wider than the elevator. By the rule, so if you had that on the main deck, I think a car really would have trouble getting by there. You have to have a 5-foot circle.
Yeah, I understand that, but what if it was in the engine room deck, below the main deck?
You'd still need an elevator.
Well, accommodating any passengers below the main deck is a bit questionable for the Coast Guard. No, you're down below the bulkhead deck. Not done very often, or on a
We
cruise
just
ship.
need to do it once.
Well,
Yeah.
but would the bathroom on the primary level, on the vehicle level, if it did impact the width of the tunnel by a foot for a limited space, would still provide ample room on either side of it for opening doors and so forth. So it would only be constrained for a short dimension. Is it still worthy of at least considering?
Oh, we could sketch that in and see what it looks like, but I think it would obstruct. I think it would be pretty bad obstruction.
Yeah,
And
well,
you do have to have access to it too. So there'd need to be a space to roll in and out of the head.
good point. Thank you.
Gary,
And also, sorry, I didn't,
Go ahead.
there was another part of that question too. Sure, I think the cabins on the 2-tunnel boat, very roomy with, low density seating and comfortable, so there could be more interior seats on that.
Thank you.
well, that would answer one of the questions for sure. I'm Bob Koshan. I'm a forensic marine engineer. And power ballasting definitely could work. During the half an hour, or less than half an hour, but the time that the vessel is in the port, it could be ballasting up, preparing for the weight that the vessels are, trucks and so forth are covered. So they take, well, that costs money for sure. And you would need some tankage availability. I believe the vessel could be designed with a sub-basement, sub-tankage to be able to carry that. What I don't know is the limitation for draft on either end. What kind of draft do we have? What do we need?
Yeah,
Jerry?
I think you have adequate draft on either side, really. And we're talking about a 10-foot max, I'd say, draft for the boat.
So you could have, even with a full load, you probably have enough clearance for a false bottom for a tank for ballast water if you needed it. So my point is, so ballasting could take care of the list very easily. The second question, or my point, I'm new to the island. I've only been here 2.5 years, and I've ruined my wheels mercifully on those rails. But the question I have is, it sounds like you're designing this vessel around Rockport Marine. Why is that? Rockland, I guess. Doesn't Front Street have the capacity to lift it?
They do not. The only vessel that they can take is the Shay. They might be able to take our Curtis class vessels, which is the Burgess and the Philbrook. But they have a travel lift, and the limitations of that travel lift that's what they've told us they can only do.
440 metric tons is what their limit is on that travel. I don't know what this thing weighs. I'm just asking.
I don't know. Do you know what it weighs, Gary?
About 500 long tons light.
So I would say that we're looking at other marinas other than Rockland Marine. But Rockland Marine is who we've used since the beginning of time. It is right here in Rockland. There is no other marina that I know of in the state of Maine that can service our things. So part of that double-ended piece, I know that was something that was wanted, is what is the savings on the spin, the time for the spin for the double-ended? If the ferry goes down, we're now either going to have to tow the ferry out of state. There's less oversight than what we have right now. Our port engineer may have to go down to New York or Massachusetts to go oversee that vessel, whereas we literally go there pretty much every day right now on Rockland Marine. So I do think we have some limitations with that. We are exploring other shipyards that can service our vessels. Right now, we only have a contract with Rockland Marine. This coming year, we're putting out a no compete bid where we can have multiple shipyards be able to work on our vessels. And down the road, we might be able to have a relationship with somebody else that we know that can do that. But as it stands right now, Rockland Marine is the ones that we're in.
I just want to add, so a couple things. So, once I found out, 10% plus inefficiency of a double-ended boat, everyone's advocating for saving on greenhouse gases. Why would we build an inefficient hull? It's that doesn't make any sense to me. That was one thing. It's it's 2 minutes max to spin this, you back out on one side, you spin it on the other side, and only got to spin halfway around. And I've been traveling to Peaks Island since I was born, and riding on a car ferry, seeing that spin all the time, and it's not a big deal. But the conventional boat can go so much faster. So you're gaining in speed, and you're compensating for the time that it takes to spin the boat. So there's no advantage. It's why would you do that? You're just burning more energy, and you're not saving any time. So, and then when we realized you couldn't do it at Rock Marine, it's conventional boat here, people. This is what we want. It makes sense. It's the that's the conclusion that I came to as a non-architect, sitting in Augusta.
Yeah, I can't believe that Norway now has had a ferry on the same length run that we have. 3.2 miles, all electric, saves money, double-ended, open design, and they've been doing it for 10 years. And why is it that we can't figure out a way to do it? That blows my mind.
Which location?
Doorway, the amphitheater.
Oh, we can, you can have, I think we offered everything that was asked of us. We designed a double-ended ferry, all electric operations. We did our homework and we put it out to bid and, you know, price tag, we got 41.5 million. And that's not without overruns. That's not adding engineering. That's just the base cost. And you're gonna be adding millions on top of that. You actually go to build it. So we did exactly what was asked of us. Yes, it can absolutely be done. There's no question. There's double-ended ferries, you know, everywhere. There's all electric ferries. This isn't something that can't be done. You can do that. So that's the question is should we though, right? So should we build a boat that we have to tow out of state to be serviced? Should we build a boat that's less efficient, you know, less efficient hydrodynamics, that's not saving us on time? Should we do that for a double ender? I couldn't wrap my head around what are we gaining with a double end design? Because we're really not, I don't think we're not gaining on time and we're consuming more fuel with a less efficient pump. And then for the electric part of it, okay, so one, you could get more money. You know, I find more money is certainly an option. We know if we go all electric operations that the stair trunks are going to be a little over 8 inches wider on each side. Now you're going to deal with this dumb tunnel heading thing that you're living with today, you know? So it's like, I really think the best, when you just take everything, you know, into consideration, the best thing for this route is a cable, right? We've maxed out K in terms of length, maxing out every available space. And, you know, it's going to be a lot better fuel efficiency than any other boat that we have in the fleet. Other than, you know, we get the Dinsmore, it'll be, you know, we'll have our second hybrid boat. It's going to have similar technology to maintain. I think we have a winner. Is it absolutely perfect with everything that people want? Maybe not, but it's going to have place to store your gear, solves a tunnel problem. It's far greener than what we have now. It's going to be a new boat that's not going to, hopefully not have to be maintained as often as the old boat is. Outdoor seating, ADA, gives you everything.
Okay, on the slide board. You had a design that was 35 or 40% over budget. In what confidence do you have now that this design is going to be able to be built? And what are you going to do when it's over budget? It seems like everything is getting more expensive, and you haven't instilled a great deal of confidence that your cost estimating is reliable.
That's a great question. So the things that we know for sure, the charger itself, we had $1.5 million just for the charger, right? So that's gone. The battery capacity is reduced by a factor of 4. Those are two obvious, like, you know, several $1 million right out of the gate. The electrical infrastructure that we need to build on either end, we don't need to do. We want to be able to plug it in on both sides. We are going to do some electrical upgrades, but nowhere near, like we're saving, easily saving $3-4 million in electrical upgrades. All the equipment that's needed below deck, switchboards, the fire suppression battery room, there's without a doubt substantial savings that we know going to the design we have, and it's, you know, it's 172 versus 207. So there's substantial, not substantial, there's some less steel for sure inside.
Okay, we have 2.5, 3% inflation.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where this is gonna go out to bid, but I have every expectation back here in 6 months or a year and say, we have to cut this down to this road. When we have anything built
We've got to find.
in the
So
public sector.
what we've done, so we've, in the same, we help fund, Casco Bay Lines and their capital projects that they do there too. We'd like to hurry up and get this out to bid as quickly as we can. The longer we wait, the more inflation increases. The sooner we can get consensus on what to build and then getting Gilbert designing it, that's really in our best interest to control costs. This last time around with, the double-ended ferry that we put out to bid, we had 2 bidders. Previously, the Dinsmore, we had 1 bidder. Castle Bay, they're building, they have 1 bidder. We've networked with a lot of shipyards in terms of saying, we've talked to them, process that we've used, we've engaged them, tried to, get some more interest. We get multiple bidders, we're gonna get a lower price. So we need to do that again. So what happens? You get a crazy bid, well, you can reject bids, and then you can look to try to do something different, or just wait, figure out, okay, why, it's just bad timing, it's every shipyard jam full right now. There's so much uncertainty with tariffs at the moment that, that's driving costs. We can look at those factors and then pause, then look to put it out again. Casco Bay did that with their boat. They waited, another, I don't know the duration, it was like between 6 months and a year, and then they re-advertised and they were able to get a bid that they could afford. So there's solutions to it, as well as looking, asking the state for a greater contribution. So there's options to deal with that. And it's certainly, it's a real thing, live with.
Patrick O'Bannon, I'm a resident on the island. I would like to urge you guys to be more transparent in your cost estimating in terms of, we have 45 million for the boat that came in. But then there's all this money for infrastructure on either side in terms of dolphins and everything else. And then if we don't have an electric boat, those numbers go down. I'd like to see clear numbers on the proposed Maggie Smith 2 and what the infrastructure costs are on that compared to what the original costs were, because it's all getting very fuzzy.
And more, what are the rates going to do relative to the new boat? We're paying $50 to put a car on and drive it. So if we buy this new boat, whatever amount, are the rates going to go down? Are they going to go up? What's everybody wants to know that, because we're losing people on this island. I'm sorry for interrupting here, but we're losing people on this island because they can't afford to be here. And that's just a shame.
We got like about 5 minutes here, and we gotta balance. Go ahead.
So I'd say with the rates, right, so the rates have to do with our operating costs. So this is a capital project, so it's not being, but that's why we want to.
But is it gonna be more efficient, so we need less people, crew, or is it going to less fuel? How is it going to operate?
Yeah, I would say that the crewing would probably be the same as what the Marble Chase ship is now. So, we have 1 H boat, which is the Thompson, that requires an ordinary seaman, which is a higher level than what a deckhand is. So if we keep this as a K, we can have the same crew that we currently have now. So I don't see any increase in crew costs with the K boat. We would see improvements in fuel, and so that we'll look at that as at the rates to see how that goes at 20% savings, and with the Dinsmore as well. But we just did, as everyone knows, we did 2 rate increases within 2 years, and so our projection is not to do another one in the next 4 to 5 years, assuming that we continue with where we're at with the operating costs.
Thank you. Jerry, if I may, one what?
Oh, can I just answer this to the question? We will absolutely give you a breakdown on costs. I have it. You spit that out in about 10 minutes. I do know, I can even state this because I looked at the numbers. The pen improvements for our original design that we put out to bid was a $30 million project to improve the ports on either side. And that cost right now, I believe, is around 12 to do, the hybrid assist at 172 foot length.
Thanks. And the K boat can be how long, or is it based on weight? Now, displacement.
It's not a hard number, but you have to measure, you have to measure the length that's considered to be in tonnage to start with. And then the spaces below are calculated on volumes, so you get the really cross-section areas. So you got the length of the boat, a combination of the length of the boat and the cross-sectional area of the useful space below deck, and that becomes the tonnage. And then the spaces above get added in also as a volume.
Okay, so maximum tonnage can be what for a K-boat?
Oh, 100, 99.9.
Okay.
And
Thanks.
it's an ancient system of
Yeah.
trickery in a way.
I got like.
Just one last comment from the design perspective. I think one of the fundamental issues with the existing Margaret Chase you've addressed with the widening of the tunnels. I think was a lot of demand, a lot of requests for open deck. Obviously, that's not in the tunnel design. Could it be, or is there a way, Jerry, in the design of this Margaret Chase 2 to open the outer bulkheads more than what they currently are in Margaret Chase? There's not a lot of viewing ports. You're typically parked with a steel bulkhead right outside your window, which you can't open your door, and in an emergency, you can't get out unless you have a sunroof. So I thought the fact that you've widened the spacing and you're taking down the wheel guards, but is there a way to open up that?
The stairs are actually open too. You have a gear there.
We've done that actually. So that's a big goal, like between the various, stairs and elevator and uptake, we're putting arches in those outer bulkheads, so that there's going to be actually more, like open area, like you're saying. Yeah, if there's nothing there, we're not going to close the space in. Like the Margaret Chase Smith has, like bosun's lockers. We're going to try to avoid having those, on the main deck. So it'll be like open archways. You'll be able to walk through, That's the real goal.
You considered pods relative, then you would have the loss of hydrodynamic, hull shape and everything else. They use pods on tugs all the time now, which are totally reversible, 180 degrees. So you could, or better actually, almost 340, I guess. So you would be able to have a double ender and not have the problems that you're discussing, which are valid if you don't have pods.
Yeah, there's still the dry docking issue with those though. But they did, when we did the double ender, those were considered. So not for the single ender though.
I think another look might be beneficial. I don't know when that last look was, when that last consideration was, but things have improved significantly in the marine industry in the last few years.
Yeah, that was a few years, 2022, probably 23, in that range, when that was done.
People are going to come up with more questions afterwards, probably endless questions. We're happy to, you guys are going to think about, you make stuff right here in your head now, maybe things that you're going to go home and sleep on it, and tomorrow you're like, well, how come I didn't ask this? So email me your questions. We have the virtual public meeting online too. You can enter in comments there too. Welcome to engage me. I'll work with Jerry to, try to answer questions. We can come up with a better way to do this. We will. We're trying to problem solve and give you guys the best boat that we can, given available resources. So, again, anything's fair game, fire away. We'll try to be respectful and get back to you guys.
What's your timeline? When is the desire?
Oh, I'd like, the comment period will be open until the end of the calendar year. So
And you're looking to go to bid.
we'd like to get Jerry going back to work with, detailing everything. I mean, he's been working, he's still, he charges a lot, so he's still working here, all these concepts, it costs money to people. But we do want to get into final design and final detailing so that we can put up, this latest concept out to bid.
You have a timeline of when you want to.
We'd like to be able to do it. Yeah, Jerry's listening. I'm trying to push him. I'd love to have it by summer, but probably looking at fall. There's a lot of work that takes to, all the detailing involved. So fall next year.
Yeah, that's good.